Here we go.
Nice.
How's your day?
Yeah, good. Hey, Steve, my day's been good. Once again, just man, we'll get into it. I've got something that I've been wanting to like really chat to you about.
Oh,
So I can sort of dive in. How was your day, by the way? Before he,
yeah, it was good, busy,
yeah, okay,
which is good. So this is like take four. We've had a challenge with this episode.
yeah. Well,
So
look, I mean,
neat.
it's
That's
good
so
that we're here.
important.
It's good that we're here. And then specifically, so first of all, I mean, here we are, sort of while you're busy recording this. I owe you and Jenny an apology in that what I was. So here's the thing. What's actually happened for me was where Facebook page, and I said I was going to get going, and I was going to like sort of do a whole lot of work on the Facebook page, and I was going to make it all happen. But I've been spending quite a lot of time thinking about my entire process with what does it mean? Like, what does healing mean? What does a person being well mean? And in fact, the reason why I haven't posted anything was because I was actually so busy doing my process and coming to an understanding of what I determined healing to be, what it meant to me, that, sort of, like really sort of defining it,
Okay.
and then um, ma- being able to share that with people in a way that would empower them, as opposed to me just almost like seemingly like what I've learned intellectually and then sharing it, sort of this is what you to getting to a point where I've had like such experiences with through massage, through my mindfulness with people, with my personal journey, and then really sort of getting to a point where, I mean, this is it. I, people, I think what people are sort of, what I personally, I mean, I'm sort of looking for words to articulate this even, what I've personally come to really understand is that nobody gets out of this alive, and we all act as if we are. And we're actually spending an inordinate amount of time on aspect of our lives which engulf us and consume us to such a degree, when there's actually, if you actually had to look at a person's life, when I sit and talk to a client, they've got so much good that's going on, and all that's happened is that they've kind of like been, their whole lives have been folded into one small sliver of reality, and there's no denying that there's no denying that it's a real thing when people become ill, because it consumes them. Yes, it does. But from what I've seen and with the people that I've been working with, it's the people that actually no longer think about how to fix. Of course, they're doing all the right things. They of course they've got all the processes in place to fix whatever it is, whatever symptoms they have. Of course, they've got that, but their thinking is much more about what's going right, how would they like to be. And I know that we've mentioned this once or twice before, but what is the language of wellness?
Absolutely.
And most people's current language only isn't large enough or creative enough to actually take in a vision of what it would be like for them to be well. And so then I made a few things about what is the process. How do we break this down into a process? And this is why I've taken so long, was because I was thinking, so I've got all this information, I've had all this, I've seen literally miracles take place, with people using mindfulness or massage or exercise or whatever the process is, and also sort of being, on the various modalities with you and Jenny. And then it's what is boiled down, if I really have to look at it, is that the people that succeed the most in becoming well again is that they've absolutely made the decision. And then
Absolutely.
and then what happened for me was like, okay, so then here I am, mindset coach. Okay, and I've been blessed that I haven't had a a disease. I haven't had a metabolic issue. I've been blessed. I've been well, I've been fit, I've been strong, my training is good, my exercise is good, so from that point of view, I wouldn't be able to sort of, and it was kind of like I was almost afraid to say, listen, when you make a decision, because, well, if I make a decision to get well, Warren, then what happens if it doesn't work?
Yep.
What if I keep being sick, and then what? But optimally, the people I've seen in my practice is the people that have made a decision. They're the ones that seem to heal the quickest.
Well, that's spot on. And that's really the topic is that we wanted to talk about was language, because where I come from, and even though we have a prevention focus, where I come from, it's about understanding the languaging is about this is what happens, this is the outcome of being sick. And for the last few years being in a care coordinator role in a busy sort of primary care practice, one of the things that, and I say to people all the time, if you want to get well, you will. And it's that is a very simplistic way of putting it. But I've had exactly the same experience, even if it's just orthopedic stuff that we're doing mostly in this context. I say to people, if you want to get well, you will. And the people that really want to, they get well. So, the topic is, really languaging and languaging change. And that's what you've brought fundamentally to the party. And it's about saying it differently, right? Instead of saying, this is the outcome, let's take it right back to the beginning, the first time I kind of heard it from you. It's not about saying this is the outcome of being sick. This is the outcome of being well. Yeah, this is what happens. What does your life look like when you're well? And you're saying that the vast majority of people just don't have that language.
We've through the way, just sort of society and our general the way we work, the way we do everything, is we lose. So here's another huge sort of almost sort of visceral realization that I've had is that we often talk about it, you and I, Steve, we talk about it, is that we're consciousness first. And without a person, so first of all, you've got to make that decision. You've got to make the decision that you're going to get well. Then secondly, there's an acknowledgement that we are much more than just the sum of our physical symptoms. What is the life and the mind and the soul, or whatever that energy is that animates the body. And we're so often, in fact, 95% of our time, the scientists are saying this, 95% of the time, we're so informed by our environment, our DNA, our perspectives, our beliefs, our everything that we do is informed by our environment. And our environment is our bodies, because that's part of our external environment to the energy that animates the body. Then it's our work, then it's home, then our relationships, then sort of out we go into our village, our city, our politics, our country, and then the rest of the world. So we're informed by this. But then, consciousness in and of itself cannot be contained within any of these things that we call our environment. So, it was how do I now sort of get people to understand that and consciousness is just pure potential. So if we are pure potential first, then if we're taking that tablet or we're doing that exercise, we're not exercising. And this is the real reframe for me that I've really gotten a hold of, is we're not exercising to get rid of the symptom. We're not making a sick body well. What we're doing by you taking that tablet or you doing the exercise that you need to be doing, you're actually not staving off old age or a symptom, but you're actually moving to the next best expression of your life.
Yeah.
Same tablet, completely different reframe.
100%.
And here's the thing that I've really come to understand as well. And this is what I was grappling with, because I sensed it, but I couldn't really talk about it in the sense that people don't have the language of wellness because they haven't even invented it yet. So people are moving towards, how do people move towards something where no current language exists for them to move into their state of wellness? And this is my work, and thanks to you and Jenny as well, it's really made me look at this, is that how do we create the language of wellness, and then let let your language be so singular to that particular outcome. Then people have said to me, yeah, but isn't that just like being a bit like rah rah
Yeah,
and
yeah,
affirmations and
yeah,
and then straight, it's like, no, of course, talk to your healthcare givers, talk to Jenny, talk to Steve, talk to your doctor, talk to your psychologist, talk to me, but zip it. Don't say another word about your symptom, about your condition, about how bad it's been, because here's the thing, that those markers, science has proved this now. When we talk about negative aspects of our lives, literally we inflame the neural pathways in our brains. We inflame them.
that's
So not only do we inflame our brains, but we keep kicking ourselves up into the fight and flight response. So the adrenaline goes up, the blood sugar drops down, and then actually we make our bodies even worse.
absolutely.
And up until us, people say to me, so how do I even do that then? Is then to start defining what wellness would mean to a person, and when would they know they're well enough. So a person might be so far gone, they might have such a low sort of base to start from, that actually just being able to carry parcels into their home
Yeah,
might be a huge signifier of well-being.
yeah,
So how will you know that you're well enough? And remember, wellness is not just being physically able. Wellness is, there's mental wellness, there's emotional wellness, there's relational wellness, and all of these things are so interwoven, that then how now do we start working on that? And then if they can define that, so that's part of the work. That's what we sit down and do. We define what wellness would, then only speak to that outcome. And if it seems like a lie, then don't talk about it at all. If somebody asks, so how are you doing? How's it going with your whatever
yeah.
whatever particular symptom? A lot better. I'm doing really well, and I'm talking to my healthcare providers, and things are there's progress. That's it. Not to dive into like a whole litany of how wrong everything's been for decades, because it literally narrows the brain, and we must then focus on that, and that's all we can see. And things, I heard this once. I don't know who. Everything's changing, except it keeps changing to the same thing because we keep thinking about the same stuff.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's it. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah. So, and I know I've been like a little bit of a motor mouth, but being able to like really sort of understand. I mean, like, what are your thoughts? I mean, Steve,
Oh,
I know this.
because this episode for me, just understanding the impact that even, and I'm not suggesting we've got it absolutely right. We don't. I think it's a work in progress, but it's such an important part of the progress that we find a way to, when we engage with somebody on a program level, because that's a decision we've made. We're not going to go the consult to consult route where we say it's your problem. Here's the advice, here's the spreadsheet, here's the presentation. Off you go. We've made that decision, and that's a difficult decision because there's shared accountability there. The accountability for the outcome is shared between ourselves and the participant or the patient.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Yeah.
an absolute responsibility that people need to take. And then in making that decision, you become responsible.
Yes.
Because then you become an active. It's not just, you're not external to whatever's happening. And then if it doesn't work, well, then it's the healthcare provider's problem.
Absolutely.
And it's their fault that we didn't. It's our responsibility to take absolute control over our bodies.
Yeah. And that engagement.
And that engagement
is so important.
All the sciences are taught, and so all the sciences are talking to how much influence our thinking actually has over our bodies. Now, a person may suddenly have a metabolic issue, not for any other reason that they've been plodding along, and their habits of eating or whatever, as suddenly now they've got a symptom that they need to sort out. It's then to actually then start bringing in the language, and it's also then about understanding that there's so much about their bodies going. I mean, what's the stats? I mean, every 2 weeks our stomach lining repairs itself.
Yeah.
Our skin. I mean, give me a couple of those, Stephen.
Well,
This is
I mean, I'm going to start with the negative ones, because those are not I know. But, for example, 2 hours of chronic stress, 2 hours, of sitting and even if it's just language with yourself, even if it's just that language, that inner voice saying, I'm sick, I can't win, I can't do this. 2 hours of that destroys your microbiome.
No, you see.
And your microbiome is where the hormones that you are talking about that are needed to feel, dopamine, serotonin, etc., are made in the stomach.
Yeah.
They're made in the gut. They're not made in the brain. And so the thing is that it keeps coming back to the fact that this is one singular organism, one singular system. But the importance of helping people frame the language when they start the journey is becoming absolutely fundamental to.
You see, and this is where, so this is what I've grappled with, is that how do we now tell people, so listen, your consciousness first, and then your body. And and I think in the one podcast that we happened not to record, or the sound was missing, I quoted Caroline Leaf.
Yes.
And it was a small, I'm going to say it again, because this was so pivotal to my, it was a eureka aha moment that just like blew me out the water. The book is called Think, Learn, and Succeed. It's on page 39. And more or less, I quote, paraphrase her. She says, we can no longer ignore the fact that up to 90 to 99% of who we are light packets of energy, and that is the mind aspect of us. And she goes on to describe the conscious, the non-conscious. And that for me, Steve, was an absolute game changer. So what I've come to really understand is, so how do I fix the symptom? No, we're not going to focus on fixing the symptom. We're going to spend some time getting you to understand that you're conscious potential first.
100%.
Because then when they're taking the tablet, they're not taking a tablet to get rid of a symptom. They're taking the tablet so they can be well, to have a greater experience of who they are, who we are as consciousness. I cannot begin to tell you, Steve, how much this has changed my entire perspective on what I do.
Yeah. And that's why I want to talk about it, because for me, it's been a complete. I'll tell you this: the difference between our program as a physical program with pieces of traditional, even that, which is very different from what's happening in medicine, but even just a series of modules that are physical based, and adding that element that says, number one, we have a conversation with you about, where are we going on this journey? And then those monthly mindset calls that we do, and the feedback that comes from patients is that it's an anchor for them, becomes an anchor in that journey. And the fact that the relationship with the mindset coach is such a different one than from a traditional, health. The conversations that you have with our program participants are very different, but it just comes from a different place, and that's why it's so valuable.
Sorry, Steve, to interrupt.
No.
It's like, so it's been such a huge game changer for me, because when I sit with somebody, all I see is pure potential.
That's the difference. That is the difference.
And that's what's happened. That's what's changed in my head. Whereas before, I sat in front of somebody and it was like, okay, so how do I get this person to think differently so that they can actually then make a plan to get rid of the symptom. I'm sitting in front of somebody now, and it's been my revelation. It's been my understanding that's made it. It's like a blank slate of pure potential. And then it's like, okay, so what's going right? What's working in your life? What are the things that you can be more creative with? How can you express more? And then it gets into things like gratitude and forgiveness, but not because just for the gratitude's sake or the forgiveness' sake, but we do these things we do forgiveness and we do gratitude because they're cool things to do. But also, what happens is that we're calming down the
Yep.
central nervous system.
Yep.
And remember, we're a body. We're mind and body first. And if the mind is 90 to 99% packets of light energy that we haven't even begun to access or begin to understand, then within that lies the potential for a person's healing.
Yes.
And there must be, because there's too much scientific evidence of spontaneous healings and people healing, coming back, and things. I've personally experienced like a couple of things that were like miraculous to me, where a person's healed after a decade of like a continuous back issue, traction, physios, all sorts of things. How did that happen? I didn't understand. It happened. So there are potentials, and that's the thing. Are we talking to a person's potential? Are we talking to their creativity? Are we talking to the fact that they can take their power back, that they do have an influence over their DNA, their bodies, their outcomes?
Yep.
And then every decision they make is then for a greater expression of their life, as opposed to just trying to get rid of one small symptom.
100%. I'm going to just talk to a quick study on this topic, which maybe we can wrap up. It was a recent study done at Harvard University. It was a big study where they looked at mindfulness, where they looked at relaxation. Simple. They took a very big sample. They looked at a sample of people that had never done any relaxation before, that had some with some experience and some with 25, your long-term experience people. They did a full genetic makeup on every single person. What they found, us won't be surprised by this, but everyone else was, that the people with the most experience in relaxation techniques had a completely different genetic makeup than the ones who did not. And those genes that were different in the groups were those genes that expressed for inflammation, which is fundamentally at the core of chronic disease. Then they said, right.
Hold on. Say that again, Steve. Say that again.
So they did a full genetic makeup on a very large sample.
Okay.
They found, without doing anything, they found that there was a big difference between the group that had a lot of experience in simple relaxation stuff, yoga, mindfulness, etc., and the people who have never done it before. Very different. Yeah. Then the scary part was they said, right, now I want you to do 15 minutes of mindful relaxation for 8 weeks. I think it was 8 weeks. I might even be less. And then they redid that genetically. And they found that in the group that had never done it before, there was already 500 genetic changes. In other words, epigenetic changes. Those genes had now expressed differently.
Yeah.
And every single one of them were genes responsible for inflammation. Then the study organizer said he wants to go further. He went back and he re-interviewed all of them and said, are you telling the truth? Did you do it every day? They're like, no, we did it actually 3 times a week for 15 minutes. So on the basis of 4 weeks, I think it may even be 4 weeks, of 3 times a week at 15 minutes, you make a 500 gene epigenetic change. So this is not, this is simple stuff. But the bottom line is, so what we're saying, I think, ultimately, is that when you start on a journey, particularly a journey of prevention or a journey of chronic disease management, if you're not starting with a canvas of potential, you know what? It's going to be a really long journey.
Yeah, that's really it. So just to the way I've come to understand, so what you've said about the DNA change, the genetic potential that we actually have. When a person goes into a state of mindful attention or meditation or even prayer, what actually happens is with that point of focus, the central nervous system calms down completely. The fight and flight, the rest and digest, and they come together where there's a certain point where the consciousness of the person filters through, and in that potential, the DNA. So how can I actually say this? The genetic potential doesn't take place because of the relaxation. They do the relaxation, but the genetic potential takes place because more of who they are as consciousness starts flooding their body.
Yep. I get it.
And that for me, that has been like such a huge awakening for me in terms of how we perceive ourselves. Is that, oh, okay? So you look, I mean, look at how different it is. Okay, so if I relax, I can tap into an unlimited potential, a potential just being the potential that I can begin to choose what wellness could look like.
Yep.
And I could contemplate that and spend time thinking about that. And remember this, Stevie, that we're the same consciousness. Imagine consciousness not knowing that it's consciousness, focusing on one particular symptom with all that power behind it. Therefore, the symptom must become real.
100%.
Because we influence in the opposite way. We can switch off 500 genetic potentials in the same way because it's consciousness acting at the same time. It's not because we're unconscious when we're switching off. It's consciousness not knowing that it's conscious.
Yeah.
Switching off. So that's for me has been like a real. It's taken me a while to get my head really wrapped around that. So I can really just sit now, and my work is not to try and fix the person in front of me. My work is to remove any judgment, any observation that I think I would need to make, but other than just observe them as the purest consciousness waiting to express its potential.
Spot on. I mean, that is, I don't think I could summarize that better. In terms of the role of, the role you play, and the mindset coach's role in disease prevention for me has been absolutely solidified over the last year or whatever, probably a year we've been working together on this.
Yeah.
And I'm in absolutely no doubt that there is not just a fundamental, but without it, I don't think we can do it. And everybody needs to understand that this thing and what happens here is going to determine your success at the end of the day. And if you, I hate to be negative again, but if you can't get your head around that, that's the role that someone like you plays, is to open that door, because, it doesn't come naturally for people trained in a more traditional, not traditional, more allopathic.
Yeah. And look, I must say that, because I just have to say thanks to you and Jenny again for trusting me with this process, because I had no idea. What I thought I knew a year ago, and then because of the work that I've been doing with you, I've been taking a particular interest in healing, and I've read about spontaneous healing. I've read, everything from sort of your more spiritual take on it. I've watched a whole lot of those. What are that's near death experience? I've watched a whole lot of those. I've read, follow some neuroscience, Caroline Leaf and all these people, like really sort of trying to understand this. And then there just seems to be like putting it, and then having had the experiences that I've had with working with your clients, not
patients, absolutely.
Quite specific about that.
Yeah.
And then, working with mindfulness clients as well, and then working with massage, and then having gone back into the personal training and really understanding that we're not training. Once again, I said this to my client the other day, in his 90s, we're not training to stave off old age.
Yep.
We're training for the next best expression of your life yet to come.
Absolutely spot on. I think that is where we should, because I think that's really what I wanted to kind of get from this topic, and it's so important, is for people to understand that this is a multifactorial journey. But the role of your, like be engaged. That is one thing. If you're going to go on a journey of whether chronic disease, risk reduction, call it whatever you want, get engaged. This is a two-way street. It's an active process. That's one of the most important things to understand. If you think this is a passive process where we're going to give you stuff, you know what? It's destined to fail. It's an active process, and
Well, look,
both parties have to be equal.
I have to say thank you to you, Steve, for having had the vision to actually make this part of your program. I mean, it's been an incredible journey so far, and I really feel
Just
that I really feel that we started to understand like the multifacetedness of this entire thing.
And I think coming up now with the launch of Freedom to Move, which is a chronic pain-based program coming in the next couple of weeks, that's going to be massive because people with chronic pain, that is a huge, I wouldn't even have tried to build that program without you and without the role of that training for chronic pain patients, because that's probably the most difficult thing we've taken on today. And that's going to be really cool.
Well, I look forward to that, because all I see is potential.
Awesome, my friends. It was cool to talk to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This podcast. I hope it's the last one.
Okay.
Next week.
Bye.
Take it easy, my friend. Good night.
Goodbye.